It's our first day of IVF treatment. We're at the hospital now, and I'll give updates after I learn what we're supposed to do and show all the medicine. Okay, I have no idea how to start this. So, we are back from the hospital, and as you can tell from the clip before, I had a lot more energy, I was a lot more enthused. So let me just jump into it. We were at the hospital. I think we woke up at like 5 o'clock, 5:30 a.m. because our appointment was at 7 a.m. So let me go back and tell you guys why I'm doing these videos. I looked for a lot of videos that were answering like, do I gain weight? What does it look like? Is it painful? And I really couldn't find hardly any videos. I think I found one that answered like the weight gain scenario. I want to share more in real time my experience. Especially for African American women who may be going through this. I know that this infertility doesn't discriminate, it can affect anyone, but the highest rates of infertility are among African American women, and I feel like that voice is really missing on YouTube. Hopefully someone will be able to see this and maybe they'll have the exact same story as me, maybe they won't, but I want to be able to provide that for anybody out there who has the same situation as me. So the first thing they did was an ultrasound. And so this was the gynecologist. So she's looking at the ultrasound and she's like, okay, I see 2 cysts. She was saying that those cysts, I think, could also be providing some estrogen, if I'm not mistaken, but it wasn't ideal. Like, she didn't really want to see any cysts. So they have had me on 2 weeks now of birth control pills. So let me go back actually and explain to you guys how I even got here in the first place. So I have had some symptoms, which now I believe are related to why I'm seeking fertility treatments. I believe it started my sophomore year of college. I was, how old are you, like 19, 20? And I was getting night sweats, like really bad night sweats. And I told my doctor about it, and I've told physicians about it over the years, and they always checked to make sure that my thyroid function was a-okay. And after every test, they're like, thyroids are fine, you're good. So I thought that was great. You know, I just chalked it up to, I get night sweats. I have no idea why, but I do. Starting last year, I started to get other major symptoms that were really big red flags for me. I was already interested in freezing my eggs because, you know, I'm a career woman. There's a lot that I'm doing, and I just couldn't imagine myself at the time like having kids right away, but I really wanted that option to be there. And I knew that this was kind of a new-ish technology for the masses. Freezing eggs started with women who were undergoing chemotherapy to make sure that they could actually have kids after chemo, and now it's very common. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm gonna look into this. I would really like to do this. But before I could even start that process or go down that road, I had a tonsillectomy. After my tonsillectomy, I experienced I had to go under surgery twice, by the way. I hemorrhaged and I had to go back into surgery to stop the bleeding. And that was actually the most painful part of my recovery, but that's a whole other story. So once I was recovering, I realized that my period hadn't started, and I thought that was really weird, but it wasn't totally a red flag for me yet. I just thought, you know, going under surgery, any surgery where you're put under anesthesia, your body's going through a lot, and so it may not be functioning normally after that. So that's kind of what I chalked it all up to be. So by January, I started to experience hot flashes. Like, I was getting really, really hot. And I would put on my coat, take it off, put my coat, take it off all the time. And I had no idea why this was going on. I was just like feeling super hot. I was pretty miserable. I remember like on my birthday, I was dealing with this, and it was just really weird. So, you know, and I was around my aunt, and she's like, "Oh, you're too young to have hot flashes." I'm like, "I know." Like, and so they're thinking she's not really having hot flashes, and I'm knowing that like I'm having hot flashes. But I never really talked to anybody about it. I did talk to my PCP, my primary care physician, about it. And again, they checked my thyroid function and everything is a-okay, but then something weird starts to happen. Like my period just does not come back. And I'm dealing with hot flashes for the next 3 months. That's when I was referred to a OBGYN. They checked me out. Fast forward, they decide that it's probably best that I go see a reproductive endocrinologist. After doing some tests, I believe my lab work was showing really low hormones. I start being seen by the reproductive endocrinologist. They tell me that basically they believe that I should undergo IVF as soon as possible. If not freezing, you know, and keeping the eggs, but not to wait too much longer. COVID happened. So I was supposed to do this in the summer. I think I had planned for June, right after I finished classes, and I couldn't. So I had to wait. And I remember asking the doctor, I was like, so, you know, what if I don't want to do this right away? Because it had been such a huge commitment for me to say, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, it wasn't a quick decision for me to decide I'm going to get IVF. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend, for us, it was $7,000. And I'll go through the costs because I know it can really vary for everyone. One of my friends went through this and it was $10,000. That's a lot, you know, and it's a big commitment. I'm like, geez, like, we are also planning our wedding. So that was everything like all at once. And I want to say, gosh, I hope I have the timeline completely right. You know what? I think my timeline is a little off. But my tonsillectomy was December 2018, not 2019. So I had been dealing with this for a year. But come March, so let me backtrack and give you the proper timeline. December 2018, I had a tonsillectomy. I hemorrhaged, went back into surgery. January 2019, my period doesn't come. It's not striking me as odd yet because it's so soon after my surgery. I'm thinking my body is just recovering. I'm starting to have hot flashes though, all the way till March 2019. I'm told, hey, you should like kind of jump on this. That was around May. I'm still thinking about it. I'm not sure. Things go back to normal. They put me on progesterone to get my period going again. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like I still have school. I was finishing another year of school for my graduate studies. And it's just in the back of my mind and trying to figure out, it's not really in the back of my mind, it's like the forefront of my mind, still trying to figure out what I should do. And I just remember being very, very stressed during that time. I was taking really intense science courses and my spouse was deployed. And I just remember being so overwhelmed with stress during that time and trying to figure out what I should do, because it was about around March when I was told that I needed to undergo IVF. That was probably in the books for me. And I couldn't wrap my head around everything, and I didn't have time to do everything with my really demanding school schedule. We were supposed to have IVF done this June. That is June 2020. COVID happens. Can't do it. And we were waiting and waiting, and finally the office opens back up. We are now in October 2020. Yeah. And the moment we had the opportunity to jump on it, I did. So that's where we're at now is, okay, I'm gonna undergo this. I've watched some YouTube videos. I kind of get what I'm gonna go through, and I've talked to my friend who went through it unsuccessfully, unfortunately. And she's maybe about 10 years older than me. So we feel like age might have a lot to do with it, but we don't know. Which leads me to today. After we looked at my ovaries, I had questions for my physician, and I told her, my primary care physician thinks that I might be going through pre-ovarian failure, I think is what it's called. And I asked her, like, do you think that's the case? And she tells me, yeah. So it was pretty much confirmed that the hot flashes that I've been having are really like premenopausal symptoms. So she sits down and she takes on, like, her demeanor completely changes. She's talking to me really soft, and I felt like I knew she was gonna tell me something a bit heavy. So I asked her, what is the ideal number of eggs to get? And I'm like, I know that's a loaded question because everybody's body is different, but like, what's ideal? She says, ideally, you'd want to get about 15 eggs. For you, we'll probably expect to get 4 to 6 eggs. And I wasn't prepared to hear that because after watching everyone's videos on YouTube around my same age, I just thought I was in the same boat. Like, I just needed medication to get my eggs growing and I would be fine. I would have like 15 eggs, 20 eggs, like another YouTuber that I saw. She's like, there's also the possibility that if I don't respond to the hormones, they'll have to end treatment in the middle of my IVF cycle. So that was a lot to take in. And she also let me know that I am getting the highest dose possible. So I asked her, like, why did this happen? I don't understand, like, why I'm even in this situation. And she was just like, sometimes it's just genetic. And I could only think of my grandmother, who I never met, died when she was 23. And my great aunt told my mother, hopefully you guys are following, that her mom, my grandmother, stopped having periods at a really young age. So she died 18 months after childbirth. So sometime in between there, like, her periods just never returned. And so I guess that's the only person I've heard of that's had a similar issue like this. Everyone else I know, like my sister, she's 21 now. She had her daughter when she was 20. My biological mom had kids at, well into her 30s, so that was never an issue for her. My grandmother on my father's side had 3 kids. I don't think it was an issue for her either. So, I understand science and I can accept this, but I wasn't prepared to hear that my chances would really be so low. The last thing that she told me was, right after my IVF treatment, I will have to go on hormone therapy to replace the estrogen in my body until I'm 50. And that's when, like, it even like hit me even harder. And she told me the reason why is it will increase my life expectancy, because for someone like me going into pre-menopause so early, apparently the life expectancy is shorter. They often die from heart problems. So she says it'll help with that. It'll also help with my bones. She said I could be more prone to osteoporosis and hip problems, but the replenished estrogen can really help with all of that. So basically, it's really great that I found out all this early enough in my life. I kind of wish I had doctors who thought, oh, let's check her hormone levels, back when I was first complaining about these symptoms. And maybe I could have done something sooner. I don't think at like 20 while I was in college, I would have had $7,000 to $10,000 to just do IVF, but it could have helped me to prepare sooner for all of this. And so that's one of the things that I want to do is share this information so that people can start advocating for themselves, know what's out there, know what the possibilities are, because your physician may not share everything with you. But if you can think of this, if you're going through the same symptoms and say, hey, like, I know you checked my thyroid function, but what about this? You know, I always had irregular periods, but I had never actually missed any. This was the first time. This is very unusual for my body to start missing periods and not be pregnant. I've never been pregnant before. I actually had irregular periods in the sense of I was having 2 periods every single month for years. And I have no idea, but I'm like, I wonder if I was ovulating twice as much as the average person. And that's a question that I'm going to ask my doctor, because my ovarian reserve, or my egg reserve, is exceptionally low. So that kind of makes me wonder, like, did I just run out of the eggs? Because you're born with all the eggs that you have, right? So if I'm like expediting and popping out 2 every single month, then that could answer that question. So we'll see if that's a possibility, and I'll find out and share it with you guys. Yeah, so after I heard all this, I walked out and my spouse was sitting there, and I started to cry. Like, I couldn't hold it in. I just had tears coming down, and I told him like everything that she had just shared with me, and it was just a lot. And it just kind of sucks because I've always wanted to be a mom, and I just feel like I don't know if that's gonna be possible. I'm now like really scared that I'm gonna go through this process and it may not be favorable. So that's gonna be a lot of anxiety for me. I honestly didn't see any of this coming. I thought it was gonna be easy peasy. Give me some hormones, make some eggs, freeze them, and, you know, move forward with life in the order that I thought everything was gonna happen. So we'll see. I am going to do videos every day that I have an appointment, even days that I don't. I believe the physician's going to see me every other day after my 4th day. So I just want to give a quick update. It's about an hour after I last vlogged, and I just got a call from one of the reproductive endocrinologists, and they said that I have, because of the cyst that I explained that I have, we have to postpone my start date, and they need to get rid of the cyst because they are producing estrogen, which could mess up the cycle. So I'm going to stay on the birth control for another 7 days, and then hopefully the cyst will be gone, and then I can start the cycle. I'm a little disappointed because today's already been really stressful, and it's just news that I wasn't expecting, but hopefully it's not a bad thing and this can be easily resolved. So we'll see. All right, I'll keep everybody updated. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and thumbs up if you like this video.